Okay, we'll start now. Wonderful. So today is the 9th commandment, okay? The 9th commandment of the 10 commandments. And I just want a show of hands. We have all broken this. Can we just let's decide that we have everyone hands up. You have all lied. We are all liars. let's just clear the table there, okay? So let's just decide, because sometimes I remember thinking, oh, I haven't done that. But, this is one, and the more I've delved into it, the more I've realized there is so much more to this, and it is something that we all struggle with all the time, okay? So, the 10 commandments, I won't go through them all. What's going to happen is I'm going to try to finish up this, and then we've got someone coming to share a little word that they felt God had placed in their heart for the women here. So we'll come to that at the end. So, thou shalt not tell lies, okay? Thou shalt not tell lies. And, or it says in the Old King James, it says, you shall not give false testimony. Thou shalt not bear false witness. Lots of different ways to say that you shouldn't tell lies, okay? We are surrounded with words. Words are absolutely everywhere. The TV, the media, the books, the magazines, newspapers, emails, text messages. Words are absolutely everywhere. But how many words are true? What is truth anymore? In this day and age, what is truth anymore? Everybody is saying it's their truth or what it is. So what is truth anymore? Jesus said, and I'm going to say this at the beginning, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. So he has set a benchmark for us. He is the truth. If you don't think you've told any lies, here are some examples. Oh, the check is in the post. Oops, haven't done that one. I remember, phoning my brother. I'd forgotten it was a birthday. And I said, oh, yes. It's just in the post. Still in the house. Still needs to be written. Still needs a stamp. Still needs to get... we say things like that, don't we? Okay? Here's another one. I'll start my diet tomorrow. I'll be praying for you. Until you meet them the next time, you're like, ooh. Lord, quickly, as they're walking towards me, look, Lord, I did pray for the Amen. Yes, I've been praying for you. I've done that. So there's another one. I have absolutely no recollection of what you've just said. Or when you go to the dentist, open wide, this is not going to hurt. That's a lie. This questionnaire will only take 2 minutes. And every fake or dud call starts with a lie. We're calling about an accident you've just had, and it makes me so mad. I'm like, I have had no accident. I start arguing with myself. I've had no accident. You are telling lies. I give them such a mouthful. Slam the phone down. And I feel better. But it's just all lies, Our media is full about trials. TV programs. I like to watch Quest and FBI and CSI and all these different documentaries. And, all these thrilling things are really interesting to watch. But, they're often based on someone telling lies, someone covering up the story, someone doing things. Look at the conspiracy theories that are going about the place. The COVID stuff, and we're like, oh, yes, we're all following the rules. And I said from the word go, I'm going to put my hand up. I'm going to break the rules because I'll go out for more than one walk in a day. I just knew I would. And a lot of people were. But some of the people became so self-righteous about, I'm doing everything right, but we were all breaking rules. And then when you see these COVID inquiries and you realize what a joke the whole thing was, the people who were giving the rules were actually breaking them in the most ridiculous way. So it's just, we live in a world where this is just, it's okay to tell lies and it's okay to tell the truth. There's some famous awful trials. O.J. Simpson, he lied about murdering his wife. Oscar Pistorius, it was all about, he said it was someone else lying about shooting his wife. Lance Armstrong, he was the former, cycling champion. He lied all about, I'm against drugs and all this. Then it ended up that he actually took banned substances. And then on our news, which is breaking everyone's heart, is this post office scandal. How awful has that been? And you see documentaries and stories about people, and it has been tragic. Someone knew the truth and they wouldn't cover. They covered it over. People took their lives. People have lost everything. And it just is heartbreaking. And the common thread in all of this is lies were spoken. the truth was bent and deceptions were made. So we are surrounded by a world that tells lies. We have to stand different. We have to be different, you know. Lies are universal. Every political system is corrupt. I'm sorry to say that. You know, I know we have governments everywhere, and I'm not taking a stand on any government. You'll never hear me taking a stand politically. But every political government is based on untruths and things that you know, they want to win people over, and sometimes they win people over by telling lies, and then different things happen, you know. Again, it's interesting, like with adultery, remember we spoke about how people bend the truth and people change things, and they put different language. So we have put different language around lies. Here's some of the lies. Here's some of the ways we describe lies. People are economical with the truth. Statistics are massaged. Dates are adjusted. Qualifications are enhanced. Have you heard people that have changed their CVs so that they look good? Expenses are inflated. Product defects are overlooked. Excuses are manufactured. Work history is padded so that you look really good. Alibis are invented. Difficult issues are evaded, and promised deadlines slide. You know, we like to say all these things. We've all become expert liars in some ways, and we have to stand and be different from everything else. These are lies that we say to make us look good. We lie to the tax man. It's estimated, and I was shocked at this statistic, it's estimated that billions, not millions, billions are lost each year in UK because people lie about their incomes and their expenses. Billions are lost. We lie to the doctor, yes, I exercise daily. Or yes, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. We're not, you know, and doing things like that. We lie at work. You know, who's broken the photocopier? Oh, I haven't touched the photocopier. And we knew that we were one of the last people to do it. You know, we lie to the policeman. I remember my kids remind me, you know, I was getting a ticket from a traffic warden, and I was like, I never saw the sign. I started arguing and telling him I didn't see the double yells. I had seen the double yells. You know, that was such I was a lot younger, but my kids had left a lasting impression on them. Mom, remember, you were really angry. You were shouting at that traffic warden. I mean, I was also heavily pregnant. I thought, come on, give me some grace. But, you know, they remembered my bad attitude for a long time. What an awful example I was as a mom, you know. So sometimes we can lie to the police. Now, I didn't know it was a 30-mile zone. I remember doing that, getting a speeding ticket and saying, I never knew that there was that. You know, I did know. I just chose to not obey, okay? So we have to be very, very careful. And our digital technology has gone everywhere, and can we even trust a photo? Let's not talk about the Princess of Wales and her photo. Bless her, she's not well. She's got a photo out there to quell the rumors, and everyone's like, oh, she's telling lies. There's a conspiracy theory, blah, blah, blah. She's not wearing a wedding ring. She's divorcing her husband. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. But we've become a very suspicious bunch of people, and yet we're also very gullible. So lies are everywhere. And I just want to say here, okay? Don't use your culture to disguise lies, okay? And in our culture, I'll explain it. There are no red lies, yellow lies, pink lies, purple lies, white lies, black lies, okay? In our culture, we go, oh, it's just a little white lie. It's a lie. Yeah. It's a lie. Yeah. I know other cultures where you can ask them something and they'll be like, no, that's not true. You know, oh, no, that's fine. They don't want to offend you, so they would rather lie to you. You know, and I remember asking a question. They said, no, I didn't do that. And I thought, that's not true. And then I realized it wasn't true. And I challenged them. I said, you said there was, because I didn't want to upset you. I didn't want to offend you. I thought, I'd rather you told me the truth, you know. So sometimes culturally, we try to disguise it and we say they're little white lies. But a lie is a lie, okay? You shall not give false witness. Right. So there's two little things I'm going to talk about. The cost of lying. The Bible is full of people who have lied. The beginning of the Bible starts with the serpent lying to Eve. And then Abraham lies to Pharaoh. And Isaac lies about his wife. And Jacob deceives his father. We know all that. The Hebrew midwives, they lied when they said, why are the babies being born? They said, oh, the babies give birth before we come here. They lied. Potiphar's wife tells lies. Rahab lies. Saul lies. The Bible is full of lies. So girls, we are in good company. But there's always a cost to lying. And with all of those stories, we don't have time to go through them, with all of those stories, there is always a cost to lying. Jacob had to work another 7 years in order to get that extra wife that he desperately wanted because he was deceived. You know, Joseph ended up in prison because someone told lies on him, but God had that plan already planned out. Abraham was asked to flee and get out of Egypt because he lied. David had Uriah killed because he lied. Rachel lied about the stolen items. So there's always a cost. So before we tell the next lie, there is a cost to say something, okay? So just be aware of that. In John 8, verse 44, it says, your father, that's us, your father, the devil, and all you want to, you're from your father, the devil, and all you want to do sometimes is please him. He was a killer from the very start. He couldn't stand the truth because there wasn't a shred of truth in him. When the liar, the devil, speaks, he makes it up out of his lying nature and fills the world with lies. That is who our father used to be. But when we find Jesus and we invite Jesus into our lives, he becomes our father, and he is the way, the truth, and the life. Okay? So Satan is the father of all lies. So that's the thing we need to remember. There are lies and there is a cost to lying. The second thing I wanted to focus on mainly is lies reveal the heart. There's the heart of the matter. So I'm going to go to just this story in 2 Kings chapter 4, actually. Well, I'm going to do chapter 5 with the story of Gehazi. And the other thing I was going to say is lies have lots and lots of friends. You know, a lie, you know, we always talk about a lie. There's a snowball effect with a lie. Well, lies like to have lots of friends, and we'll come to that in a minute. But this story about Gehazi was a prophet of Elisha, and they did all sorts of exploits together, and he was his servant. He was watching what he was doing. Now, if you remember, Elisha was Elijah's servant, so Elisha was watching what he did. Did he, you know, I'm going to do everything. In fact, and he said, you know, when you go, I want a double blessing. So he took on the mantle. He got the mantle, and he became the wonderful prophet. So his servant is now Gehazi. Gehazi could be the next Elisha or Elijah, but Gehazi lives a different life. He allowed his heart to get hard, and we have to guard our hearts. And so Gehazi was the prophet. Gehazi was a servant of the prophet, and he watched all sorts of things. He saw the woman, you know, he saw the story of the oil, which I was speaking about on Sunday. He saw the story I was going to mention was the widow from Shunem. And when he saw her, you know, she comes and she makes a little house for Elisha. Every time he goes by, he stays there. It's, you know, she's made digs for him to stay in his ministry tours. And Elisha notices that she doesn't have a baby, so he comes and says, you know, she needs a baby and all this. So that's all good. And Elisha prays, and she has this baby. And then, of course, the story goes on. You know, a few years later, the little boy is maybe, you know, 10, 11-year-old, and he's ill and he dies. And she just lays the boy down, and she gets on her donkey, and she thought, I have to see Elisha. And she gets there, and she speaks to Gehazi, and she says, I have to see the man of God. So she pushes past, and she has to see him. And when she sees him, she falls down at his knees, and she's crying and crying because she just wants to go to the man. She must have had the discernment that something's not quite right with Gehazi anymore. And she falls at his knee, at his knees. And this is what Gehazi says. This is his heart. Gehazi began to push her away. And it was Elisha stepped in and said, stop it. What's wrong with you? He sensed this woman is troubled. Gehazi was like, what are you doing? Get away. And this is a woman that provides accommodation for him. And he tries, and says in the Bible, he tried to push her away. That was a revealer of his heart right there. And then And then she speaks, and then so Elisha says, could you go? We're going to, Gehazi, you go. So Gehazi runs off with his staff, and she pleads with him. She goes, unless you come, my little boy's not going to live. She doesn't trust this servant anymore. There's something in Gehazi. She's like, I know he's gone with your staff. I know he's gone, but unless you come. So he comes. And sure enough, Gehazi's gone. He's put the staff there, and nothing happens. But when Elisha comes, then the little boy comes back to life. So that was a revealer of his heart. The next chapter is a story of Naaman. And I'm not going to go into the whole story, but Naaman comes. He comes all the way down, saddled with all this thing, wanting to get a cure for his leprosy. And he tells him to go and dip in the River Jordan. And so this all happens. And he comes back and says, I'm healed. And he wants to give him stuff. And Elisha says, I don't need any of your stuff. I don't want anything. And if you look at the equivalent of what he was offering was huge, huge amounts of money. But something is stirring. Gehazi's heart's not right. And so Gehazi goes in this journey. So he runs after him when Elisha's not looking. And he starts telling 3 lies. The first lie, he stops and goes, excuse me, Naaman, excuse me, my master's changed his mind. We've got some unexpected guests. Could you just give us some of that stuff? Oh, and of course, Naaman's like, absolutely, you can have this, and he loads him of stuff. So the first lie is told. So then he goes back and he's thinking, what am I going to do? So he then buries it all. He has to bury everything because that's now covering up the lie. So he buries it all. Then he goes and he hides the gift. That's a second lie. And so, he thinks, I'm going to cover it up, but nothing's going to happen. That's a second lie, so he's deceiving. Then Elisha says to him, hey, where have you been? I missed you. Have you been somewhere? And he goes, no, I haven't been anywhere. Third lie. And then Elisha says to him, you have been lying. I saw you in the spirit. So I think Elisha has seen this man's heart. This man's heart was with Elisha. He could have been the next Elisha or Elijah, but because he allowed his heart to go away from the Lord. And it says in Proverbs 4 verse 23, guard your heart. And this was written before these people ever lived. Because David preceded and Solomon, they preceded Elisha and Elijah. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Avoid all perverse talk. Stay away from corrupt speech. And when I said lying requires friends, lying needs deception and brings in pride and brings in coveting, which we're going to speak about next week, brings in insecurity, brings in bitterness. Lying doesn't just come by itself. We lie to make ourselves look good. We lie to protect ourselves. We lie in all sorts of ways. And we need to check our hearts. Are our hearts slipping a little bit, or are different things happening? Gehazi's heart was away from the Lord. And in this, he became vulnerable to deception. He became vulnerable. And he was like, I can't believe. And he said, Elisha, why didn't you take that stuff? And he just began to covet. So be aware, if you start lying, it's difficult to stop. And we become, if we aren't guarding our hearts, we put ourselves in vulnerable positions. Be aware, there's a few things we need to fight here. Be aware of the power of your tongue. Rescue me, O Lord, from all deceitful people. It says that in Psalm 120, verse 2. And I just want to say, we're going to speak in a little moment, a little bit later about this, but the little foxes come in and they corrupt the fields. And you think, oh yes, I've heard about that at work. Oh, it happens in church. Oh, it happens in this room. I've walked past conversations. I thought, oh, they've gone very quiet as I've walked past them. Be careful, girls. I have to tell myself all the time. You get drawn into conversations. You get drawn in. And when you're drawn in, you only hear one side of the story. I was involved in the last couple of years in a very interesting case about somebody. And this person had been falsely accused. And it was a horrendous situation. But if you had spoken to the person that had falsely accused him and listened to their story, you would have been drawn into just the web of lies. And it was horrendous. So when you are listening to the story, unless you go and hear the other story, you are just hearing one side. So be really careful. Be aware of the power of the tongue and what it has. I think it's a bigger thing on us girls, sadly. Remember the cost of lying. I know in Acts 5, verses 1 to 4, Ananias and Sapphira, again, they lied about what they had. They didn't even have to do anything, but they lied about that story. We don't have time to go through the story, but they lied, and Paul said, is this all the money? And they said, oh yes, this is all the money. And God struck them down. I was thinking, wow, that was really tough. Imagine if the Lord struck me down when I told a lie. Huh? That would be hard. None of us would be here. We wouldn't be having Sisterhood, because we all could be struck down. 1 Peter 2 verse 1. So get rid of all evil behavior. Be done with all deceit, hypocrisy, jealousy, and all unkind speech. Shun gossip. Be really, really careful. This is the thing that destroys. This is the thing that brings in division. You know, Proverbs 26 verses 20 to 26, 20, 22 and 26. I'm just going to read it because in fact, when you find out when you start studying lies, I could have spent the next 2 hours quoting scriptures from the Bible about lies. There's so many warnings. So it says in Proverbs 26, fire goes out without wood, and quarrels disappear when gossip stops. A quarrelsome person starts fights as easily as hot embers light charcoal to keep the fire lit. Rumors are like dainty morsels that sink deep into one's heart. A lying tongue hates its victims, and flattering words cause ruin. Wow. I always find that's a difficult one. Someone says, oh, what do you think? Do you really want to know? It's a difficult one, isn't it? Do you like my hairstyle? And you're like, yes. And you're thinking, I'm not telling. You know, so it is difficult. Sometimes we don't want to hurt people by saying things. It's a difficult one. I'll sometimes say, yeah, well, and then, or the kids will say, I know you'll tell me the truth, so what do you think? So I will tell them the truth, you know. But it's a difficult one. I always find that a really hard one. But a lying tongue hates its victims. Isn't that interesting? I didn't, you know. So in conclusion about this whole thing of lying, I don't want to go out condemning us and making us all feel bad because we're all in the same boat, okay? Me probably worse than anyone else. Here's a few little things to remind us. Be open. Matthew 5 verse 37. Let what you say simply be yes or no. Anything more comes from the evil one. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. You know, if you sign up for something, just say, I've signed up. Don't make an excuse, oh, sorry, this is, you know. Let your yes be yes, because people build up trust. And when they're feeling vulnerable, when they're feeling down, they will know who to come to. Okay? Another one is, a lie is a lie. Remind yourself that. You know, there's no different colors or shades of lie. A lie is a lie. Be wise and listen to both sides of the story and pray for discernment. Pray for discernment. Because you know, you might be listening to something. God might give you a word that you just say, well, I don't know what to say, but if he gives you the right word to just say something that doesn't side with either story, that word, I've actually said to someone, I can't remember an example just now, but I know it has happened in the past where I've listened and I've just prayed and that the Lord's given me something to say and I've just said something and I've just left it, and the person's come back and said, you know what, I thought about what you said and I want to apologize for saying this, and it actually spoke to me. So God can give all of us discernment to say the right things that'll actually just take that, you know, just take that fire, you know, the air from the fire. Be an encourager. Be an encourager and tell people that, you know, encourage people. Text them, tell them they're wonderful. Tell them, you know, I try to encourage people as much as possible, because if I'm encouraging, I'm not criticizing, right? So do that. Be true to your word. You know, imagine that Jesus is present in every conversation. I'm wearing this here, Dare to Stretch, but I remember years ago wearing WWJD, you know, what would Jesus do? I remember Julia said to me as a little girl, because does that mean what would Julia do? I says, no, what would Jesus do? And you know, that reminded me, and I've sometimes looked at, sometimes it annoyed me, I had to take it off, because I didn't want to be reminded about what Jesus would do. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. So let's be reminded he's in every conversation, you know. Let's try not to exaggerate. This is a problem I have. Exaggerating and inflating a story or whatever. You know, sometimes it can be really funny. And sometimes I found myself in the past, so I'm telling a story and people are laughing, engaging. I just add a little bit more and add a little bit more. And it's just hilarious and everyone's laughing with me. I'm like, That wasn't really fully true. And sometimes when Ian's doing illustrations, he'll say, no, what was that? And I said, Ian, just give the gist of the story. You don't have to go into every single detail. He goes, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. Because when things are being filmed, you don't know that person could be listening that you're talking about. So you want to say the right story. So let's be aware of that, and let's be careful of that. And James 3 verses 5 to 6, I'm just going to end with these verses here. In the same way, the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And among all the parts of the body, the tongue is a flame of fire. No one can tame the tongue. It is restless and evil and full of deadly poison. Sometimes it praises the Lord our God and our Father on a Sunday morning and worships. And sometimes it curses those who have been made in the very image of God. So blessing and curses come pouring out of the same mouth. So I would say we have a choice. What are we going to say? And choose the truth. Remember who your Father is. And choose the truth and try to be honest about everything, in a gracious, loving way. Wonderful. Thank you.